Hello and welcome to ODLAN's Digital Safety Procedural Policy Walkthrough. This is a resource available via the Open Digital Literacy and Access Network's website, ODLAN.ca. This is a digital safety procedural policy accessible for anyone who wishes to improve their digital infrastructure for individual or organizational needs. So I am your host, Viv Lee, she, her today. And with me, I have my colleague, Evan from ODLAN, and we will be discussing this policy and how you can implement it for yourselves. So quickly, we'll go over the procedural policy and we'll walk through the three large parts of the policy itself, and then we'll do a little bit of conversation at the end around how to implement it. So quickly, a digital safety procedure is a way to keep your digital infrastructure and the folks at your organization or company safe. It is a way to reinforce your personal and professional data, as well as protect you from bad actors and online threats. So what is it for? We have a high level understanding right now, but we'll get into a little bit more later. Who is it for? The short answer is everyone. We want to make sure that everybody has access to this resource. That's why we've left it open source on our website, and we encourage folks to review it as a team and then make choices and adjustments to the document as a team so that it fits best with your organization individually. And it's really important because a number of digital infrastructure loopholes have been more prevalent. For example, passwords have been hacked more often, social media platforms have been attacked more frequently, as this is especially relevant for organizations that serve the 2S LGBTQI plus communities, which is why we need to ensure that those resources are accessible for all. On the website landing page here, you will see odlan.ca/digital-safety-procedural-policy/ and this is where you will find our website-based version, which is accessible here. As you can see, this policy, it goes over who it's for, what it is, and a PDF version, which you can download and modify for your own purposes. If you have any questions regarding implementation, we have an info@odlan.ca email that you can reach out to us at, and there is an editable version via Google Drive link on the website as well. So this procedural policy is quite substantial. It's a large document, and it is a resource, particularly for small and mid-sized organizations. This is relevant in order to allow them to protect their team members and digital assets from bad actors. It is also an ongoing living document that can be used as a reference for when a team member is uncertain of how to navigate a digital space or a critical infrastructure issue, or when there has been an attack on your digital infrastructure. This is a great flexible guide to implement for what to do during a threat incident. So if somebody is trying to hack your system or take over your social media, for example, there's procedures for how to deal with that. And it is a living document. So it's designed to be customized for each organization's needs. It can be implemented across any type of operating system or software preferences like Google or Microsoft. And it is a great training tool for new and existing team members to establish sort of a baseline understanding for what devices, networks, and softwares you use as a team. As I mentioned earlier, it is for all organizational team members, especially for those that are internet facing. So if they are social media coordinators or finance related or web development or anything where they are interacting with the internet and the infrastructure for the organization, this is particularly important. And for leadership members, it's really important to establish digital infrastructure standards and onboarding material for new members. This will save them a lot of time in the long run for how to onboard new people. And then it's excellent for external consultants who need a reference guide on digital standards. As we know, a lot of small to mid-sized nonprofits rely heavily on part-time or temporary consultancy. So it's important that we provide them with standardized practices for how they can work with the organization. And finally, this is a really useful incident response team or IT specialist resource for when an attack has occurred and when you're dealing with threat actors. So we obviously need this for practical reasons. All organizational members will not be digital specialists, but you do all exist in digital spaces. And for most 2S LGBTQIA plus organizations, threats are expected and escalation is likely. We have seen a significant increase in intentional attacks against queer and trans-led organizations over the past 5 years. So it's not a matter of if, but when. We do want to take care to draw attention to organizations who have suffered from bad actors like Trans Care Plus, which is a powerful example of what could happen in worst case scenarios. So we do want to honor our sister organizations who have undergone harm. So we have an overview of the policy in 3 parts today. This is divided into 3 because it is quite a substantial size. So we first have references to people and things. So that will be articles 1 through 4.4.2. We have a large section in the middle on social media and platforms, which will be article 4.4.3. And then we have a section on information security, InfoSec, and incident response, which will be articles 4.4.4 to 12.5. And I do apologize for the article numbers. However, this was the easiest way to keep it organized. On people and things from pages 5 to 16, you will see team members and their roles, digital accounts tracking, and digital identity. On social media and platforms from page 16 to 43, we'll see a section on social media consent practices and privacy security settings for Instagram, WhatsApp, LinkedIn, Bluesky, Facebook, and TikTok. We will not be discussing Twitter or X. And then finally, from pages 43 to 68, we will have a section on InfoSec and incident response, which will address doxing and public information protection, digital device security, reporting security incidents, training and awareness resources, and then a number of common incident response protocols. So with that in mind, I'd like to quickly review the sections as we discussed. So as I mentioned earlier, this is on the website here. I have taken the time to download a copy. As you can see, there is a large table of contents at the top to help if you need to jump to a particular section. There are, in each section here, we do want to recognize that this is a template, which is designed for modification, which means that you will see a number of highlighted or blank spaces to allow you to fill in the information that you would need. This is a great example here. So under the section team members, you will see a section on critical roles where we are trying to identify which members of your organization hold primary account holder, secondary account holder, super admin, admin, incident response leads, and record keepers. We recognize that some organizations are small. They're between 3 and 5 members. And so a lot of these roles will have to be doubled up. But we recognize that you're going to do the best with what you have. If you are finding that any of this information doesn't fit your organization, we strongly recommend that you reach out to us at info@odlan.ca and give us some feedback on how we can adjust and improve this template for future use. Remember, behind ODLAN, we are all just people, researchers who are curious about the world, and we want to make sure that we're providing the best information we have available. So if we find something that needs to be improved upon, we're more than happy to add that in. We have a large description of what kind of roles are needed here, followed by a section on digital accounts and tracking. This is an organizational policy for digital account tracking tools. So any softwares that you currently use, this will also allow you to determine if there are some redundancies or if you're overpaying for a software. I find that when you are putting together this list of softwares, you will find there will be areas that you could improve on your budget, or perhaps find redundancies where you're using 2 softwares for the same purpose, so you can slim down your infrastructure a little bit more. And it allows you to keep track of who has access to what, and will allow you to set standards for who has the ability to modify and manage the specific tools and softwares. We also include a section on prohibited tools. So if there is a list of tools that are unsafe for the organization to be using, this will provide you with that place. And of course, this will hyperlink into templates that you can fill out for your organization to implement faster. If you wish, please reach out to us again at info@odlan.ca for those template resources. For account management practices, we do have a standard that we recommend around authorization, account monitoring, and review of accounts. So how frequently you should be auditing and reviewing accounts, and how often you should be doing some house cleaning around who has access to what. We recommend doing this review every quarter or every 3 months. Training and support is always important, and so we encourage those members of your team to provide ongoing training as well as initial training. And if your team has the capacity, we recommend including some IT support. There often is a mention of an IT department, but we fully recognize if that is just one person. Very frequently, it is one person or perhaps a volunteer. So just make sure that you're modifying this material to suit the specifics of your organizational needs. Under data security, we have standards for personnel information, how frequently backups should be conducted, and how your financial records and critical records are kept. We have lots of hyperlinks throughout this document, including this one here by the Islamic Family Foundation, which will provide you with excellent resources for how you can manage those assets directly. And in section 4, we have a section on digital identity. So how we go about protecting employees' digital identities whilst at work and then beyond. We make standard recommendations for how you should create strong, unique, safe passwords with a length of 12 to up to 24 characters or more, with unique uppercase and lowercase letters, with numbers and special characters. Recommendations for what not to use, such as personal information or generic words, or recommendations for passphrases, which are given examples of here, with lots of hyperlinks to well-established resources like Keeper Security on how to select and maintain strong passwords. We, of course, recommend multi-factor authentication as well. Excuse me. And recommend for folks who are accessing the same resource from multiple IP addresses or multiple locations, should you have a nomadic team or a fully remote team, we recommend using authenticator apps like Google Authenticator, Microsoft Authenticator, or Duo. For those who need more advanced support, we recommend Titan security keys or preferences around hardware tokens. And then here, of course, is another highlighted section for you to implement this for your own team. It is important that we are clear and transparent with your team about what their expectations are around password privacy, as well as how frequently you should update your passwords. And here I'm going to pause and ask Evan. Evan, how frequently should we be changing our passwords?
Every 3 months.
Perfect answer. That's correct. And if you're not changing your password every 3 months, we recommend starting today, and that you set a calendar reminder for yourself every 3 months so that you can update at least your core passwords. So that could be your primary email accounts, your online cloud, so your Google Drive or your iCloud, for example, and then anything related to your personal information, such as banking. We have some recommendations about password management. Here are some hyperlinks to examples of password managers. We have Google Password Manager, Bitwarden, 1Password, Dashlane, and Keeper. We, of course, left a section here for your organization to select your preference, which is important, and then directions for how to implement multiple factor authentication. And here's that reminder every 3 months, which is as often as you should change your toothbrush. For more information about passwords and MFA, we have some supporting links. And at the end of this document, you will have a large list of supplementary resources that you can use to get access to free resources online. The next section here is on email and communication security. This starts very strong with phishing awareness, which is the #1 method of stealing data online. So social engineering, where attackers manipulate or deceive individuals around revealing confidential information, happens all the time because it often plays on your sense of urgency or panic or discomfort. And will allow them to trick you into giving information that you otherwise wouldn't typically give away. So phishing is important to identify with your team as how the most likely way that they will be approached with suspicious activity. We have some screenshots here available and resources linked in the notes around what a email phish looks like. They have become extremely advanced, so it's very important that you are reviewing examples of phishing with your team. And then I always strongly recommend, if you are unsure around if a hyperlink is safe or not, is to take a breath and hover your mouse over the button, which will allow the URL link to pop up before you click on it. And just do a visual check to see if that link and that text that it's hyperlinked to matches. And if it does not match, that is a sign of a scam. A very common scam is through the transportation industry. So UPS, FedEx, DHL are very likely to be used for examples of scamming, which is why we've included multiple examples here. Another way is for folks to send you false invoices. So this is an example of a fake invoice from Geek Squad, which will allow you to identify phishing scams that look extremely believable, which is asking that you submit funding via their special payment system. Here are some recommendations for how to spot phishing emails. We're checking for the URL and the email address on the paper itself, as well as we're hovering over those links, as I mentioned before. And we're going to be checking for grammar and spelling mistakes. But unfortunately, with the rise of chatbots and related LLM AIs, we have to be wary of extremely well spelled out words as well, because this is now being fixed with AI integration. We are definitely looking at secure resources for this one. We don't want to accidentally click on fake places, so we have included multiple federally standardized government resources for folks to check if they are comfortable identifying fake emails. We also recommend, if you are using messaging apps or secure communication channels, that you go with ones that meet encryption standards like Signal, Telegram. WhatsApp, unfortunately, does not allow you to stay encrypted should you choose to update your data to the cloud. So it's important that you are walking into a secure messaging app with full transparency about what is and isn't shared. And then ensuring that your information is not easily pulled by data bots and online data brokers. So that means making sure that your email signature and your website reflects only professional information that you are comfortable sharing with the public. Another common, growing common scam is called phishing or voice phishing, which is a social engineering threat where they're using voice cloning devices to pretend to be a family or friend. This can be very dangerous when it comes to bank attacks and bank fraud. So please take a moment and review this with your team around how to avoid signs or how to spot signs of phishing. The next section here is quite significant. This is the second of 3 sections. So social media and public profiles, this is a huge element of risk for most organizations due to the fact that it is the largest part of your digital footprint online as an organization and as individuals. So we need to ensure that all privacy settings are up to date. We're looking at all of your existing professional profiles on all the platforms that you're using and ensure that there are no non-consensual employee information. So checking in with your team to make sure they're comfortable with what is being posted about them online. And if you wish, we would recommend linking to a consent form for social media use, which allows organization members to have a written form of consent for them to share what they are comfortable about. Should they not want to have their photo or their full government name or their email address on the website, then that is a way for you to collect and store that information. And we also recommend avoiding linking personal accounts. So your social media for your organization should never be linked to your personal information, for example, which will minimize the risk of cross-platform breaches. We have a long list of privacy setting recommendations for a number of the most popular social media and communication platforms. We will be going through the screenshots together, but the number one standard that we're going to look at are passwords, multi-factor authentication, and the settings section of each of these. So if we look first at Instagram, we're going to be starting with a password check here, where you can see on my screen, we have the account center. So we're going to go step by step to the toggle at the top right, select account center, password security, change password. And then we're going to ensure that we're selecting change password for the account that we're on. We're then going to do the same thing for setting up two-factor authentication. So we're going to go to your profile page and then again, select the menu icon at the top right, account center, password security, and that will allow us to turn on two-factor authentication. There is an app recommendation here, which we can use with any of the three I mentioned earlier, which is Google, Microsoft, or Duo, or you can choose to do an SMS or a WhatsApp, where they will send a code to your mobile number. This is really critical in the event that somebody tries to breach your organization's Instagram page and tries to change the password, it will send you an alert. And it's really important for anybody that works with social media at your organization that they are comfortable with these steps. They know how to implement them for the organization as well as themselves individually. Up next, we're going to check to see how much of your data is being actively shared outside of Meta. So we're going to go to the profile page. Again, we're going to select the menu icon, go to the account center. A lot of these modifications, by the way, will be found in the account center. So it's really important that you get comfortable with all of the subsections here. We're going to go to information and permissions, and then we're going to go to your activity off Meta technologies. So Meta would be Instagram, WhatsApp, and Facebook. And we're looking at clearing our previous activity. We're checking that the activity has been cleared, and we're managing our future activity, and we're disconnecting future activity. This will reduce the amount of data that Facebook collects about you and what you do online. It will also allow you to take back a little bit more of your digital identity from this system. We also, because a lot of these platforms are quite sneaky and they're going to try to upload your contacts in order to collect more information about you, we're going to go to your uploaded contacts, making sure that it has not been uploaded to the Instagram platform. And that's, again, we're back in the account center here. We're going to check under information and permissions, uploaded contacts, and then toggle that off. And it's important that we check this periodically because Instagram may or may not be turning that back on. Next, if we are concerned about a post attracting the wrong kind of attention, this is important to follow so we can temporarily limit interactions on Instagram to avoid harassment. So we can set that on a time limit. So we will ask, it will say what interactions from people who are bothering you are, what will be limited, and that is found under the menu again, under limit interactions, which will allow you to control a little bit more of the audience that sees your work online. If you are concerned about repeat offenders, so you have a lot of bad actors or trolls online who are leaving offensive comments on your posts, we recommend checking out how to filter out offensive words and phrases. This also helps curate your what you will see on the internet. We're looking at a custom words list here, which is under hidden words, under settings and activity, followed by hide comments, which you'll toggle to the right or left choose upon your choice, as well as hidden message requests. So you can really curate your experience for your organization and clean up who can see your work and who can interact with your posts a bit more. Again, these are recommendations. We recognize that this may not be appropriate for all organizations, but we do strongly recommend that you know where they are in the event that you need them. We have recommendations for how to filter, block, and report harmful content via this article here. And we also have this large list of bad words in 7 languages, which are hosted on the web archive, should you wish to curate a colorful list of words on your Instagram block list. The next section here is on WhatsApp security and privacy. We have, of course, again, a recommendation to set up 2-factor authentication. This will be on your WhatsApp through the menu icon at the top right. Then under settings and account, we'll have two-step verification to turn on here. And we also recommend enabling a passkey for additional security. This could be your bio ID, which would include your face ID, your fingerprints. However, we would strongly recommend using a screen lock instead of a bio ID whenever possible. We are strongly recommending that you do not use any biological identification on any of your digital devices for personal or workplace identification. This is simply to reduce the amount of data that people are able to collect about you. But we recognize that it sometimes may not be realistic for some, or it may be an accessibility feature that you prefer to keep, which is totally understandable. We also recommend for folks who are undergoing transition or gender affirming care that they consider that Face ID is sensitive to size and shape of your face, and hormone therapy can modify the shape of your face, so it may affect your Face ID. So if you are undergoing changes, we recommend turning off any bio ID identification systems on your digital devices. Here is a strong way to update your passkeys should you choose to implement them here. We're also recommending that you protect your IP address and block unknown accounts on the platform. And this is where we will go into very easily blocking information that we do not wish folks to be able to find about us, so people cannot identify where we are based off of our WhatsApp. We also recommend that you do a quick audit of who can see you via a privacy checkup. You're going to check for your personal information and how visible it is regarding your privacy for your chat logs, which can be done through this screenshot step by step here. We have a privacy checkup where if you are experiencing harassment of any kind, you can filter and modify who can contact you via these steps. Under the section here where we walk you through LinkedIn security and privacy settings, starting by updating your password to a strong and unique one. We're going to go in and change our passwords using the mobile device version here. We're starting with your settings, sign in and account security. Under change password, we're going to go in and update your password. And then as we did with our other platforms, we're also going to set up a 2-factor authentication where we will add in that additional layer of security should somebody try to guess your password, or you accidentally lock yourself out, you have an option to get back in. If you're concerned about if you are signed in unrecognized devices, this is a way where you can check to ensure that you are the only person who has access to your account information. So you go to settings, sign in and security, and look at the dropdown of where you've signed in. This will allow you to get a list of all the latest devices that you've used. So if it's beyond your computer and your phone, maybe we need to remove some access in case somebody has tried to remotely access your accounts. A newer platform that's rising in popularity is Bluesky. This one is an improved version of another social media platform, which we recommend checking out if you have not done so already. And again, in order to change your password on Bluesky, we're going to follow the same process. You'll notice that a lot of these platforms have the same systems under settings, account, and password. And then we're going to do the same process of setting up that two-factor authentication using the same, again, settings, privacy, two-factor authentication. On Bluesky, there is a really strong way for you to modify or curate the content on your feed at a much higher rate of success from previous messaging platforms like Twitter. We want to highlight that for you here in case you want to curate your audience a bit more on the platform. And that will again be under settings and then under the section called moderation. So you can choose who can see you and under what circumstances. For old-timey Facebook users, we have the same options for updating your passwords as well as two-factor authentication. Again, this is done with screenshots on a mobile device. The browser-based version will be quite different, but we can see the process here is quite standard. We're going to be updating and changing our password to a unique, strong password, and then again, setting up two-factor authentication using that same process. Like we had done with LinkedIn, we also recommend that you review your login activity for Facebook. This is becoming one of the most hacked platforms on the internet, and so it's really important that you know exactly where you have signed in to Facebook from which devices you're using, and if you do not recognize one of those devices, that you remove their access immediately because we do not want them taking your information, cloning your accounts, and scamming your network. We have login alerts for folks who are looking to prevent future attacks. I really recommend setting up alerts across all of your platforms, which will allow you to be notified in the event of unusual behavior. So this will be set up if somebody tries to log into your Facebook and they are from an unfamiliar location, they will send you an alert, which is really helpful so that if somebody is trying to hack into your system that you know right away. We recommend doing this for your banking apps as well. So if your cards are being used, you'll get a notification on your phone so that if somebody has stolen your identity or your information, you'll know immediately and be able to jump on that as fast as possible. Here you can see the settings are under settings and privacy, and then we have password security and login alerts. And I strongly recommend you turn on the alerts for your email. If your email goes to your phone, that way you'll know as fast. With these situations, timing is really important. So we want to make sure you have that information as fast as it happens. For folks who are concerned about privacy and security, further, we have a step on how to manage how people find and contact you. We want to look at your audience and visibility, which is available again under the settings and privacy section on the Facebook app here. And we're going to be selecting who can see you, who can find you, and who can search for you. This is entirely up to you as an organization. Obviously, you need to have an element of public access if you are an organization, but please be cautious of your privacy when you are an individual, because we don't want folks easily accessing your photographs or your personal information like your birthday, because this can be part of the way that they can manipulate you later on. For organizations that want to limit access to posts, we're going to look at their audience and visibility settings of who can see your future posts. This is particularly helpful when you're looking at posting about events such as Pride or Trans Visibility Day, where you know that you're going to inevitably interact with a higher level of online harassment. This is a way for you to preemptively support yourself and especially your social media team with dealing with this information. So you can access those settings here under the post section under settings and privacy. The nice thing about this is also you can adjust for previous as well as future posts. Another common scam is that folks will tag you or themselves in places that you did not consent to as a way of signal boosting themselves. So this is a way that you can secure your tags within the platform. So you're going to go to activity log, you're going to go to Facebook activity, and then under posts, we select manage posts or activity you're tagged in. So you can manage that option as well. And then finally, we're looking at profile visibility and tags. So that is who can see you and who can see what others post on your profile. I would also recommend taking a look at any previous posts from the organization around anything that's over a year old and seeing if you would like to modify or hide sections of that information just to keep your security as strong as possible. Okay, finally, we want to look at manage public content your followers can see. So this would be related not only to the organization, but to the executive members, especially. Leadership team members are more likely to be targeted for hacking and harassment online more than other members of the team. So it's important that they have their personal and professional accounts secure. This is another strong way you can do that. And finally, for your own digital identity, we recommend managing apps and websites who have access to your Facebook account. This will allow you to see less targeted and sponsored content that you do not agree to. And that will be under web apps and websites. And then this is the list of apps and websites that Facebook is sharing your information with in order to receive financial compensation. The last step we want to do is to remove any or lessen, I should say, your information privacy being or shared outside of Meta. So again, Meta regularly resells your data to data brokers online. So it's important that we are limiting what Meta can do with that information. So we want to clear previous activity and manage future activity. And of course, select disconnect for future use as well. Okay, the next section here we have is on TikTok. TikTok is a very powerful platform that regularly uses account cloning as one of its most common hacking scams, where folks are copying your entire account as well as stealing all of your videos and online posts and cloning you so that they can use your name for bad intentions. So it's important that you are updating your passwords as well as having two-factor authentication set up. So if anybody's trying to hack into your account, that you're able to prevent that. We always recommend a two-factor verification method. And of course, using an authenticator app is the best way when you have multiple access points to the same platform. So if you have 2 or 3 members of your team that are all accessing the same TikTok account, then this authenticator app is the best way to ensure that everybody can maintain access without being locked out. We want to be reviewing security alerts. So we're looking at any unusual activity in the past 7 days, especially. And this will let you know if somebody's trying to access your information without your consent. And this will lead you to look at the devices logged on your account. So again, same as the other platforms we reviewed earlier, we want to be managing the devices. And in order to prevent account cloning, we recommend turning off downloads so people cannot download your videos and create their own cloned copy of your work. So please be cautious with allowing folks to download your information without your consent. And then, of course, because Facebook and TikTok are constantly trying to collect all of the data about your contacts in your phone, we want to remove all of that on TikTok as well. This will be automatically turned on unless you explicitly turn it off. So please make sure that is not shared. For additional privacy settings and account interactions, we have those under privacy here. We want to make sure that you are in control of the comments and mentions on your platform. It's important that third-party apps can also not connect to your account the same way that Meta does this. TikTok does this as well. We are removing permissions from apps and services so that they cannot collect data on your platform use without your consent. We do have a number of additional resources here that you can check out should you wish to investigate this content further. This next section here is on doxing and public information protection. So doxing is a very insidious way of exposing and publicly harassing someone by sharing their private or sensitive information. It is a way to instill fear in another person, and it is a way to put somebody in danger. It is a very unfortunate reality for a lot of folks that work with the 2 LGBTQI plus communities that our information is frequently used for malicious purposes like doxing. So it's really important that you enable proactive measures. So that includes not only all of the strengthening of your privacy settings on the social media platforms we mentioned previously, but then your accounts, your online accounts like your emails and your digital infrastructure like your Google Drive or your OneDrive or your SharePoint. They're all being kept secure. Under personal device security here, we have a section on VPN use. We recognize that not everybody wishes to use a VPN. However, if you do choose to use one, we have a strong recommendation of options. We have our short list here of recommended options. We do not recommend free VPNs because those, of course, are selling your identity information in exchange for posting, for allowing you to use that VPN. So we recommend a low cost or reasonably priced option. If you wish to do a large scale comparison of all VPNs available on the market, we will have a link to this Reddit post here, which allows you to do your own research on what is available and what has been recommended by others. Here we have a section for organizations to set regular update cycles for their preferred frequency. Again, we recommend quarterly implementation, so that's every 3 months. However, if it's every 6 months due to limited capacity, we understand. And then we also recommend the inclusion of security software. So that would be antivirus software like Norton or McAfee. Bitdefender has a really great option for both Windows and Mac OS operating systems. We do also recommend reviewing what is already available on your platform. So Windows has a antivirus software integrated, but we recommend doing an additional layer, especially for personal data cleanup purposes. And then because a lot of the information that's collected about an individual and an organization is via your browser, we recommend including ad blocking browser extensions, and we have recommendations for which ones you could implement for your organization, depending on which browser you're using. There are a number of free excellent options. ABP, AdBlock Plus, and AdBlock are 2 that are strong contenders who do not share your data and have been a well-established standard for the internet. If you are super concerned about your data privacy, we also strongly recommend Tor, which is a end-to-end encrypted platform, and it looks like this. This has also been de-Googled, so if you do not wish to share your information with Google, we recommend checking out DuckDuckGo as an alternative search engine and Tor as a onionized browser option. This next section here is on incident response and reporting. We, of course, want to make sure that in the event of an incident that we have a standardized method of reporting and organizing and controlling the incident as it's happened, and that we have a list of who is responsible for dealing with incidences, and then who is responsible for resolving and reporting the outcomes of those incidences. So that would include documentation. So record keepers, like we mentioned at the top under the role section, that would be who is responsible for documentation. And we have a number of recommendations on who should take control and who is responsible in the event of account recovery. Account recovery is the number one common way that you will have to deal with incident responses. We recommend hyperlinking your HR team's company onboarding handbook in this document here when you have your own version of this template in your system, because that way all of these useful resource materials are all linked together and are easily accessible. And as always, we recommend ongoing training for organization members that would be new as well as existing members. We have a list here of materials that we recommend that you can work with your team on to ensure that you're increasing your cybersecurity awareness skills and preventing phishing attacks online. So everything is either free or low cost on this list. We also recommend, if your team has the capacity, to do awareness campaigns where you have an assigned team member who will send out reminders on what is the latest threat and what are what information needs to be shared with the team around the latest breaching attempts or phishing attempts, etc. For example, there have been a number of data breaches at the Amazon level lately. So it's important that if you're using Amazon devices, that you are updating all of your passwords. That goes for Google as well. There's been a large number of large-scale attacks. So if you haven't done so recently, we strongly recommend updating all of your Google passwords as well as your Amazon passwords. The next section here goes over incident responses with templates for how to deal with incident responses. So we have sort of a general description of what an incident response is, who is responsible with team composition. So we have a breakdown of who would be in charge in what circumstances. For a small organization, it is very unlikely that most of these folks will be as part of your team. You will more likely have these folks on call or on a volunteer basis where they can be tagged in and provided with sort of time-sensitive reactive measures. The legal advisor often is an expensive option. We recognize that with limited budget, we want to avoid excuse me, legal fees as much as possible. So if you can communicate with a paralegal instead of a registered lawyer, that may be a more acceptable budget-friendly option. We recommend including all of the contact information for these roles within this document so that when you are in panic mode and in reactive mode trying to fix these incidences, that all of that information is kept in the same place. And we know exactly who is responsible for what. So we're going to do containment and communication. Those are our first steps, of course, and then we're going to go through detailed response so that you have to determine if you're going to be communicating with the public about the incident. You're going to decide amongst yourselves as a team about To what extent are we responding publicly or internally? We want to make sure everybody internally has access to the information, but would that information be appropriate at an external level as well? And then, of course, the technical response of who's going to be doing the investigation of the incident and mitigation of damage. The final step, which is the most important, is recovery and resolution. We're going to be looking at what happened. We're going to be documenting everything, and we're going to be doing a crisis review. So that's looking at an analysis of what happened and how we can prevent that from happening again in the future. If we need to, of course, we'll also update any policy and procedures to reflect the change based off of what has happened. For the organizational leadership, ongoing monitoring and improvement may be something that's important to you. So you have the choice of keeping this in or removing it if this is beyond the scope of what your team can handle. The next sections here are about the type of incidents response. So we have a section on email account receiving hate mail. So if your organization deals with underserved communities, especially those in the LGBTQIA+ communities, you're more likely to receive hate mail, emails that are unsolicited and non-consensual. So we have processes for dealing with that. So how to deal with it in the event that it happens. We have recommendations for how to do immediate response steps, what to do for employees, so not responding, reporting to your team leader, preserving the evidence, screenshotting and not forwarding that email to ensure that we're not forwarding spam or malware, perhaps, if that's embedded, and then assigning responsibility for who is collecting the evidence and ensuring that marginalized team members, such as trans, non-binary, and BIPOC employees, are not required to manage these tasks every single time. It's really integral that we're supporting our marginalized team members as much as possible. And then with the IT department and security team, we're looking at the threat of what is the likelihood of this recurring or escalating, and implementing defensive measures. So are we blocking them? Are we putting in filters? We have recommendations again for that banned list of words from before. And then here's a screenshot example of how to put a secondary junk folder together that will immediately funnel unwanted emails to a targeted email account to allow you to retain the data without having to look at the data. So this is a very helpful option should you choose to select to create a secondary spam folder for hate emails. Same as we went through before, we're going to contain the threat, we're going to mitigate impact on employees, and we're going to consult if we wish to communicate with legal authorities. You, as an organization, must establish clear sort of guidelines for how law enforcement would be included. So you really have to decide as a team to what extent you are comfortable talking to law enforcement. And then, of course, looking at recovery and internal and external communication. The next section here is on email phishing, incident response strategy. So we have a section on how to deal with the inevitable email phishing that you receive. Most of your email phishing will go to junk mail. Occasionally that will come through. And we saw a number of strong screenshots in the section of this document previously, but this is a step-by-step process for you to implement with your team of how to figure out what is the phishing email and what to do in the event of receiving one. Again, we're going to contain and we're going to go into recovery and communication. Most of these procedural policies will always follow the steps of recovery and communication, as well as what to do to get back to your normal. Another common incident response that we deal with is social media account attacks. So this could be a misuse or compromisation or a security breach of some kind. So we're going to make sure that we are putting together step-by-step instructions for incident detection, who is going to get, who is responsible for immediate response alerts. And then, of course, we're going to be reinforcing those passwords, those security alerts, and device permissions. Should you need support doing account recovery, we have also included a number of hyperlinks here for platform-specific account recovery steps. They don't always work, but we definitely recommend submitting a recovery application nonetheless. And as we mentioned before, we're going to have a section on containment and eradication, followed by recovery and communication. This next section here is on dogpiling, which is where you have coordinated or spontaneous online harassment campaigns, where you have a large number of users posting negative, abusive, or harmful comments in a short period of time. So the goal here is to minimize harm and protect the affected individuals and manage the organization's reputation. This is one of the most complex situations to deal with because of the volume of attacks. It's not just one or two bad actors. We're dealing with a large number of individuals. So more extreme methods are frequently required in these circumstances. There's no harm in turning off your or limiting interaction with your platform for temporary purposes in order for your team to deal with this as effectively as possible. There are extremely detailed step-by-step processes here about assessing the situation, implementing defense measures, containment and mitigation, and then mitigating impacts on individuals. This is most likely to need social support, emotional support, and probably a break from their work as a part of this recovery process when you are dealing with dogpiling. These attacks are frequently very severe, so it's important to take a break from social media after this has happened and do some restorative care with your team. We also have, of course, the recovery and communication procedures here. And then we have our final one here, which is website attack incident response. So that is DDoS attacks. If you're somebody's trying to take down your website, we're going to go through how to recover your website and then identify what the attacks are and if there are unusual spikes in traffic or malicious scripts embedded on your website. Malware is a really common unfortunate attack strategy these days. That's why we strongly recommend setting up alerts for your security systems so that if there is unusual traffic or activity that you are alerted immediately. And then, of course, immediate response steps include who takes charge of what, who's modifying, who's collecting, who's storing that information, and then potentially how we can take the website offline and relaunch later, or we can do restrictive access, but that needs to be communicated internally and consulted with the team. The next step, of course, is to prevent for a future attack and then communicate and recover with the team. As a general rule, we do recommend also doing regular backups for your website data and storing copies in a secure location. You should have an air-gapped, which is a hard drive that is not attached to the internet, backup of your website. And we strongly recommend also archiving versions of your website to the Internet Archive to preserve critical content should there be a really intense attack or data loss situation. One more, forgive me. We have finally a doxing of an organizational member. This is a very extreme situation, typically affecting leadership of your organization. This will be where your personal identity, your email, your family, your personal data will be leaked online in the attempt to harm you emotionally and psychologically, as well as to weaken you in your cybersecurity. So it's really important that you have a system in place for dealing with doxing, including early warning systems. We recommend setting up Google alerts for team members. So if there's unusual traffic around their name, that you are notified about it as soon as possible, as well as actions for next steps, reporting it to the team, identifying the incident and who is responsible for securing the information, and then assessing the personal security risks of the individual that has been doxed, what cybersecurity measures are needed, and then online exposure mitigation. So this may also lead, of course, to law enforcement or legal action, depending on the severity of the circumstance. Finally, we're going to do containment and mitigation, as well as recovery and communication internally, and potentially, in this case, externally, should there be a need to tell your stakeholders. The last section of this document is not so much about digital infrastructure, but more about the human beings behind your organization themselves, especially if they have been doxxed or exposed publicly. It's really important to practice self-care or reactive care, or restorative care, I should say. This is where I'm going to ask my colleague Evan to jump on again and tell me a little bit about what are some important ways that you can practice restorative care. So I have acknowledging our feelings. We want to practice stress reduction techniques. And Evan, do you have any recommendations for what you would do to practice self-care?
For folks who have pets, I like to spend time with my pet, whether cuddling or going for a walk, getting outside away from screens. I also find really helpful, but also sometimes binging your favorite TV show, or playing your favorite game on your phone, something like that is usually pretty helpful for me.
That's a great answer. Pets are always an excellent way to uh, do some restorative care. I find that something as simple as spending time with a loved one, or eating some ice cream, or playing a silly game on your phone, sometimes that is helpful. Getting outside, going for walks, anything that helps you regulate a little bit and feel a little bit more grounded. And then, of course, we strongly recommend, if you have the option, to seek professional help, in that's therapy or counseling or legal consultation if necessary. But we recognize that every individual's experience is unique, and some options may not be accessible to you at this time. So we want to just make sure that you are using the resources that you have available to you. Speaking of resources, we have a section here at the end, a long list of options for exploring these ideas further. And if you have any questions, you can reach out to us again at info@odlan.ca for more information. If there's anything that I've missed or that you would like to see added to this template, please reach out. Don't hesitate to contact us. Thank you very much, everybody, and thank you again to my colleague, Evan, and we appreciate your time.